Hey MzeroA Nation, Jason here. I have a very special video I want to share with you all. This is a video that literally tens of thousands of hours have gone into, years of research have gone into create and make, not only by myself, but by this outstanding team here at MzeroA.com as well. I could be as bold to say that this is truly the most important video I've released and will release this entire year because it concerns something very near and dear to our heart. Our mission at MzeroA.com is to create safer, smarter pilots. And the tips and the tricks you're going to learn in this video are going to help you work closer towards that mission. So I was very honored to be asked by the FAA to deliver their evening keynote at Oshkosh this year. Of course, we had cameras set up and recorded the entire presentation. For those of you that were there, thank you for coming out and attending and showing your support. If not, I hope to see you next year. But for now, set aside, again, it's a little bit, just shy of an hour, but set aside that hour and get that notepad and pen out and really take some notes, because the content I'm going to share over this next hour is truly going to transform the quality of your flying.
The 2019 National Flight Instructor of the Year is going to be introducing tonight's speaker. This is Gary Reeves, and he's a flight instructor and an ATP. So let's give a round of warm welcome to Gary Reeves. Okay?
How y'all doing? And that's not going to cut it. Listen, I've been teaching 8 classes so far this week. I am tired. I need like a Texan often. How y'all doing? There we go. Listen, it is a really big honor to introduce my twin brother. Ooh, laugh. Look, we've been standing together and they can't tell the difference. Okay, maybe not. But not only my twin from another mother, he looks just like me, just a little bit taller. He wears blue, I wear pink. But you know what? Jason Shepard is one of my best friends. And several months ago at an AOPA fly-in, we sat down and said, you know what? A great pilot's always learning. And I said, well, you know, a great pilot's always reviewing the basics. He goes, you know, we ought to do something together. We ought to put together a great 2-day program where pilots who are good, that want to be great, can be. I said, yeah, you're right. Let's call it Aviation Mastery. He said, yep, that's it. And so my partner in Aviation Mastery and my really good friend, Jason Shepard, is spending time with you tonight to get you started down that road. But I want to thank the people who came here first, especially if you're a flight instructor, raise your hand. Let's give a huge round of applause for the flight instructors who always want to keep getting going. How about any volunteers from the FAA safety team? Right? Let's give a huge round of applause to them. And now, save your biggest cheers. And look, y'all gave me the Texas welcome. I need a Florida welcome in just a second for one of my best friends, a true pro. This guy has over 10,000 hours. He's a CFI II, MEI, and an ATP. And did you know he won the AOPA Outstanding Instructor Award 3 years in a row? 2014, 15, and 16, a true pro, somebody I listen to always keep learning, and my great friend and partner in Aviation Mastery. Everybody give it up for Jason Shepard.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Outstanding, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for Gary. Thank you to the FAA FAST team for making this truly a reality. And thank you to you all. You all are embarking on a journey now into aviation mastery. So I congratulate you on that. Gone are the days of I am just a current pilot. Gone are the days of even just being a proficient pilot. Because we're truly pursuing something more. We're pursuing aviation mastery, and that is what we're really after here. Now, I know in most seminars, they tell you they don't want your phones out. Well, I actually want your phones out here. And if everybody could head over, this is in your handouts as well. And if you don't have a handout, find a team member. They can get you a handout as well. And I want you to head to this website, polev.com. MzeroA, spelled out like that. We're going to use this quite a bit in the presentation. I want you to head over to that now. Let me switch it to this too. That's at the top of the screen there. And I want to ask you a question. Where is everybody at in their training? So we can kind of get the lay of the land as to where everyone is at in their training. You'll see all these results now start to come in live. pollev.com/M0A. Pretty cool stuff, huh? We can see all that. So we know the types of students, and we're all student pilots at the end of the day, that we're working with each and every time. I know we said we had more CFIs than that. Where are my CFIs at? In there as well. We're going to cover a lot this evening. When Gary and I do Aviation Mastery, and I see a lot of Aviation Mastery alumni out there as well, thank you for that, I'm going to do my best to take some of our best tips over those 2 days and some new things that you really haven't ever seen before and condense that down into 1 hour here together. So our audience, if we're looking at it, is made up of just slightly more instrument pilots. Super cool stuff. A few ATPs, awesome. A good pilot is always learning after all, right? So let's save that pollev.com/M0A because we are going to come back to that here when we do some real world training as well here. So I want to start with a story. And we teach so often through stories, right? It's one of the best ways to learn. And I want to share with you a story from the airline space. And I want you to watch for the chain of events of this accident. I want you to watch for the breakdowns in crew resource management, working as a team together in the cockpit. And we're going to watch for all those things here together as I really will work to kind of set up the story here. This is the story here of American Airlines Flight 965, and we'll follow along on the screens here together. This took place December 20th, 1995. And this evening was a relatively uneventful, somewhat clear evening, despite the fact that there was no moon in the sky. It was one of those moonless nights. Now, American Airlines 965 was departing Miami en route to Cali, Colombia. They pushed back from gate D33 at Miami International Airport at about 5:14. Now, this was actually a late pushback for them. Now, the pilots were Nicholas Tafuri and First Officer Don Williams, both seasoned pilots. Both were former Air Force pilots. In fact, First Officer Williams was named Instructor of the Year by the Air Force, a very accomplished cabin crew we have with us here. So, as I was sharing with you, the flight was scheduled for Cali, Colombia, and this was regularly scheduled. The crew had actually flown this leg before here. Despite their 1 hour delay, the flight was remarkably uneventful up into their descent into Cali, Colombia. They're running behind, they're looking to make up some time and everything else. Now, at the time, Cali had no radar. It was actually destroyed in a civil war many years before. This is in your handouts, by the way. So as we began our descent into Colombia, Cali, Colombia, we're given this approach, as you'll see here in a second. Cali approach comes on and says, "Hey, 965, Cali." Captain says, 965, go ahead, please. Cali approach, "Sir, the winds are calm. Are you able to approach runway 19er?" So they're thinking, gosh, we're running behind, the winds are calm. This is a great way to end up saving some time here. The captain, now speaking to the first officer, "Well, do you want to shoot the straight in?" First officer says, yeah, we'll have to scramble to get down, but we can do it. They weren't expecting 19. They had the previous approach loaded in there. So the captain comes back and, yes, sir, we're going to need a lower altitude right away, though. Roger, American 965, you're cleared the VOR DME approach, runway 19er. Rosso number 1 arrival, report to Lua VOR. That's what you have in your workbooks there. Captain says, okay, cleared VOR DME to 19, Rosso 1 arrival, we'll report the VOR, thank you, sir. Cali approach says, report to Lua VOR. No problems here so far. Report to Lua, the captain says. Captain talking to the first officer, I've got to give you to Tallulah, first of all. You want to go right to Cali or to Tallulah? I thought he said the Rosso 1 arrival. This is the captain, the first officer, back and forth. Oh yeah, he did. We have time to pull that out. We have time to pull out that approach plate there. And again, that's the approach plate. For those of you who don't have your workbooks here, you can see at the time they called this here, we were already a little bit past Tallulah. So this brings up an interesting thing now. Despite being slightly high to even accept such an approach, they figured they could scramble, pull the plate out, and kind of get everything done. The captain assumed that because he was told to report Tallulah, that Tallulah must be ahead of him, forgetting that Cali doesn't have radar. So he didn't really know where in space 965 was. 965 at the time, you can see where we make that little turn there that kind of starts our accident here. They were actually already past the Tallulah VOR. Now here's where it gets really dangerous. They're looking and they're trying to load this Rozo as well. Rozo is just identified as the letter R. That's going to prove very important here in a bit, and we're going to come back to that fact here. Let's continue with the story. First officer, thinking out loud, it sounds like. Okay, so we're cleared down to 5 now? That's right, off Rozo, which I'll tune in here. The captain's going, you see what I get? The problem is the captain, if we go back to our approach plate, the captain was just putting in the letter R for Rozo. And again, it's kind of you don't see too many single letter identifiers nowadays because of this. In the FMS, there were multiple letter R's in there. And instead of skipping through and seeing in the FMS which one was Rozo, he accidentally loaded another fix called Romeo, which was 100 nautical miles to the east in Bogota, up at the top right-hand side of your screen there. So when he programs that, you're going to see the autopilot make a big right turn that direction. That's why the captain's going, do you see what I get? He's going, yeah, here. So at 21 miles, 5,000, that's part of the approach. I don't know if that was his approach briefing or what, but that's not quite how we do approach briefings. First officer's kind of getting tired of him. He just says, okay, captain now, off ULQ. ULQ is Tallulah VOR. So let me put ULQ in here. Now he's going to go put ULQ in here, Tallulah VOR, which is going to show behind him. The Cali approach, American 965, distance now. What do you want, sir? Distance, DME. Okay, the distance from Cali, 38. First officer, where are we? Finally, someone's asking the questions. Where are we? This VOR is showing away from us. You want me to go to the east to this, following this random R in our FMS. Where are we? Which is a very valid question at this point. The captain says, let's go to Tallulah first of all, okay? Yeah, but where are we headed? Captain, 17.7, ULQ, I don't know, what's this ULQ? Finally, the captain says. When ULQ, as we know it, that's the scary part here. ULQ is Tallulah VOR, which is showing behind us. Can you see how we're creating the chain of events of an accident? Can you see the breakdown in CRM that's slowly occurring here? Now, I want to share with you a truth that I found really in every accident I've researched, and it's this. The longer the chain gets, the harder it becomes to break. Meaning the deeper and deeper we go, the further and further we go, the harder it is just to go around, to break it off, to climb to a higher altitude, whatever it may be. You think you're kind of putting all your chips in for some reason when we always have the option to get out of there. Let's continue. Our descent, by the way, is now continuing below 13,000 feet and below the highest peaks in the area. The captain, let's come to the right a bit. First officer, yeah, he's wanting to know where we're heading though. I'm gonna give you direct Tallulah. Okay, right now, says the captain. Okay, you got it? Talking to you, have it on your FMS? Okay. It's on your map, it should be. Yeah, it's a left turn though. They're trying to think about it here. Now the airplane is rolling from a left heading to a right heading as the altitude now passes below 13,600 feet. The heading reached 100 degrees before this direction of the turn was actually reversed. Yeah, I gotta identify that darn thing though. I'll replace the words there for you, don't worry. Captain says, okay, I'm getting it. 17.7 just doesn't look right on mine. I don't know why. You can hear in the background the ULQ Morse code. Again, the VOR is behind them. First officer, left turn. So you want a left turn back around to ULQ? Somebody's getting it. Someone realizes ULQ is back behind us. The first officer knows this here. So the aircraft rolled then from that right turn to a left turn at 6 degrees of left bank. And then the autopilot, when he plugged in that Rosa or that Romeo intersection there, all the way around a right turn at a bank angle of 20 degrees. Back and forth through the Andes Mountains, which have peaks over 14,000 feet. The captain, no, heck no, let's press on to where? Says the first officer. Tallulah. That's a right-hand turn. Where are we going? Come to the right. Let's go to Cali. First of all, we got messed up here, didn't we? Yeah, says the first officer. You can see the communication. You can feel the tension really kind of breaking down here. This is the problem here. Is it a left? Is it a right? Is it Tallulah, Rosso, Romeo? They have all these intersections. Finally, the captain says, let's just go to Cali. That's not what they're supposed to do there. They're so confused up there. So let's pause for a moment here. And unfortunately, in aviation, we don't have the option always for a pause button. But we can pause and climb to a higher altitude when we're descending into the Andes Mountains and figure out where we're going and what intersection and ask for clarification. Never hesitate to ask a controller, to ask a co-pilot, whatever that may be. Unfortunately, our story continues. Go direct to CLO, that's the Cali Airport Identifier. How do we get messed up here? Come to the right now. Come to the right now. You can feel the tension kind of building. Yeah, we're in heading select mode to the right. First officer's really getting agitated. The captain now on the radio, and American 38 miles north of Cali, you want us to go to Tallulah and then do the Rosso to the runway 19. Cali approach says 965. You can land runway 19. You can use runway 19. What is your altitude in DME from Cali? Okay, we're 37 DME at 10,000 feet. Captain, perhaps talking out loud. Okay, you're in good shape now. We're heading here. Cali steps on him, says, report 5,000 and to runway 19. Captain, we're heading the right direction. You want to hear, and then the aircraft again, still in this 20-degree right bank. The rate of descent starts decreasing from 2,700 feet per minute as the pitch attitude increases and airspeed decreases. The altitude now passes through 10,000 feet. The captain says, you want to take the 19 yet? Come to the right. Come to the right now for Cali, okay? Okay. It's that stupid Tallulah I'm not getting for some reason. See, I can't, this is what I get, okay? Now, Tallulah must be messed up. Now he's just assuming the VOR is messed up. We heard the Morse code, we heard everything. Maybe our situational awareness is messed up. First officer, okay, yeah. You know, I can put it in the box if you want. First officer, trying to be helpful. I don't want Tallulah. Let's just go to the extended center line of, which is Rosso. First officer says Rosso here. Why don't you just go direct to Rosso then, all right? Okay, let's. I'm gonna put that over to you. Hey, get some altimeters out here. We're going through 10 now. All right, finally somebody's starting to think about the altitude here. Cali approach says distance now. In the cockpit microphone in the background, you can hear terrain. The pitch attitude, this is important here. Pitch attitude, 4.5 degrees nose up. Roll attitude, 12 degrees to the right. Airspeed's 234 knots. Watch how quickly we're gonna lose our airspeed here. Descent rate's about 1,500 feet per minute, and the altimeter's 8,400 feet MSL. AGL, though, we're at 1476. The autopilot at this point now disengages here. Look at the timestamp on that. That's 21:41:15. Look at our next little bit here. Captain has some choice words to say. You can hear the autopilot disconnect. Pull up, baby, says the captain. Sound of the aircraft stick shaker. Okay, so after those, okay? So 4 seconds later now, pitch attitude increases to 31 degrees. Aircraft rolls out of the right turn. 13 degrees of left bank. Master caution issues. Altitude, radar altitude below 500 feet AGL, and airspeed went from 237 to 187, just like that, with that aggressive pitch up. It's okay, says the first officer. Pull up, says the cockpit microphone. Okay, easy does it here. You hear the autopilot disconnect warning. The stick shaker actually stops. Nope, says the first officer. Up, baby, says the captain. And then you hear it again, the sound of the stick shaker starts, and we'll continue until the end of our transmission here. More, okay, up. You hear the pull-ups, and that's the end of our cockpit voice recording. The NTSB later concluded through simulation that if American 965 had raised the speed brakes within 1 second of their escape maneuver, they would have cleared El Diluvio, the flood in Spanish, the mountain that they impacted. Did American 965 crash because they forgot to retract the speed brakes? Was that the foul? No, not at all. It was the breakdown in crew resource management. It was the breakdown when adrenaline hit. Sometimes it becomes so difficult to actually think. The further and further we get into the accident, the harder and harder it is to back our way out. And a lot of that is because of adrenaline as well. Think of this. Think of a time, maybe you scared yourself in an airplane. Anybody here ever kind of scare themselves in an airplane before? A lot of hands going. You know, a lot of scary people out here. We've all scared ourselves in an airplane. If not, you're gonna do something silly. Everything's gonna be okay, but you're gonna scare yourself in an airplane a little bit. Think of that time. What was your state before, and what was your state after? I can think of one very distinct time that occurred to me. Thankfully, I have only one and only one, I want to keep it that way, engine failure to my name. It was an engine failure on takeoff, so we made it count, right? If you're gonna have an engine failure, that's the one you don't want. We made it count. I was by myself in the time, and I was flying 512 Romeo, my beloved Cessna 150. Maybe you know the story, sold it, bought it back, just an amazing, amazing airplane here. And at the time, I had at least 1,000 hours in this airplane. And I went and I started the airplane, and it backfired 3 or 4 times. I sounded like a P-51 Mustang on startup. Like, as I'm starting, going, this airplane never backfires. I had a weird feeling in my gut. You ever have those gut feelings, and oftentimes they're right, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't listen to it. So I taxied out to the run-up area, just not feeling right. I do a run-up, everything checks out fine. I then go ahead, I do a full power run-up just to make sure everything is great. There's no reason to not go fly. Everything seems to check out. I pull onto runway 9. It's now runway 10 at the Marion County Denellen Airport. I apply full power. I do a short field takeoff. Thank God I did. Did a short field takeoff. I take off up and out of there. I get to 400 feet, and all of a sudden I hear the most horrendous sound I've ever heard come out of an airplane engine. The airplane starts to vibrate violently back, left and right and left and right. It sounds like I don't have an exhaust, and I didn't have an exhaust. I lost cylinder number 3, and I blew a huge baseball-sized hole in the exhaust manifold because of that loss there. So all I did was instincts, primacy, what you're first taught, and I lowered the nose. And as adrenaline started to kick in, I remember I couldn't see things around me. I was dedicated. I was going straight ahead. I remember I made one and only one radio call. 12 Romeo's coming back. I didn't say Denellen traffic. I didn't say 12 Romeo's coming back. That is the only thing I said. I lowered that nose. And as I collected my thoughts and remember, I mean, we teach in the ABCs an emergency. B is your best landing area. And I always say, don't forget, it could be behind you or below you. But when things hit the fan, you just look straight ahead. You don't realize the effects that adrenaline have on you. And adrenaline is actually associated with a diversion of blood and oxygen and nutrients away from the brain. People have equated adrenaline to having a blood alcohol level because you just make silly decisions. We go in fight or flight. I lowered that nose of that airplane and was able to nurse it around the traffic pattern. I realized I'm not gaining altitude, but I'm not losing altitude either. So I lowered that nose and nursed that airplane all the way around and made a successful landing back there. Everybody at the airport was waiting when I landed because they all heard, they didn't hear my one radio call, they heard the terrible sounds that engine was actually making here. And I didn't realize this about adrenaline until I started doing the research here. And then I got to looking into other accidents to see, how does this take effect? Let's look at the Miracle on the Hudson. United 1549. Another byproduct of adrenaline is we lose, so it's Cactus 1549, I'm sorry. We lose the ability to speak, actually. Sounds that are deemed as extra, we blot it out. We're not able to speak correctly. You may not realize this, but with this situation here, Captain Sullenberger said the following, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Cactus 1539. Hitbirds. Lost thrust both engines. We're turning back towards LaGuardia. He's not a man of many words anyways, but that's all he said, and flip-flopped his flight number around in the moment of the emergency. It doesn't stop there. Patrick Harton, working New York approach that day, calling LaGuardia. Tower, stop your departures. We've got an emergency returning. Who is it? It's 1529. This is the best part. Bird strike, lost all engines. We can't speak when adrenaline hits. So what happens then instead? What do we fall back on? Where does this knowledge come from that we're short, we're to the point, we're concise, we can't really hear what we need to hear, we can't say what we need to say? We fall back on to primacy. We fall back onto primacy. Primacy is defined as what I first learned. And that's what truly sticks with me. Matt, who works for us, Matt is our COO, oversees all operations at MzeroA.com. Matt is former law enforcement. And I use Matt in a lot of stories. But in this story, when Matt was learning to become a police officer, in the particular car he was in, whenever he would go lights and sirens, whenever that badge number was called, it was his turn for that call, he knew it was him. The adrenaline dump hits, right? And he goes lights and sirens, and the switch is right here on the center console. Every single time, primacy, lights and sirens, go save somebody, go do whatever it takes, right? Well, a few years later, they switched squad cars. And all of a sudden, the lights and sirens are now on the steering wheel column. What do you think happens every single time when Matt was an officer, when it was his badge number called, it's time to go, he goes to go lights and sirens? Oh yeah, and then you go here. We fall back onto primacy when adrenaline hits. So I want to ask you this. Are we learning? Are we learning not only the right things, but in the correct order and the right time? Who are my CFIs in the room, by the way? My CFIs, awesome. My CFIs in the room, I truly applaud you for being here. You are the CFIs who are making aviation safer and smarter every single day here. But I want you all to ask yourself a question here that's related to that primacy. Am I just learning to the level or the capacity of my CFI? Think about this as it relates to our primacy and adrenaline story we're sharing here now. If I am deficient in systems, I really don't know the fuel system that well, I don't quite understand what's on the electrical system and all that, where do you think my students are also going to share a deficiency? In systems every time. Unless you're an A&P, you're an auto mechanic, or systems just really excite you, you're going to have a deficiency in systems because you're going to share in my deficiencies. Students only learn to the level of the instructor. So what are we doing to better ourselves each and every flight? Think about it that way. So I want to share with you 4 proven ways to truly transform the quality of your flying. In your workbooks, you have 4 blanks. I didn't cheat for you. I didn't fill them in or anything. That way we can participate too. If you need pens, you can grab one from a neighbor here. I want to share with you 4 proven ways to transform the quality of your flying. And if you're ready, the first is this. And you can put this in your own words. It's not an emergency if you're ready for it. It's not an emergency if you're ready for it here. What are we doing to constantly prepare for our emergencies? It's not an emergency if I'm ready for it here. This goes to, of course, engine outs, engine failures on takeoff, all these sort of things. But it even relates back to some different things. What about partial panel work? Show of hands, who here in the last 90 days has done anything partial panel? Ooh, good little group, okay, good, maybe a quarter. Some partial panel work, okay? Maybe you're in your instrument, maybe you are the good pod who's always learning, who's practicing these sort of things. You see, it's not an emergency. A vacuum failure is not an emergency if you're ready for it. Now, we had IMC conditions and some other things. I'm sure declaring an emergency, I want priority, but I'm ready for this situation here. Are we training, are we practicing for each and every scenario? So I want to share with you something really fun. I did this for the first time ever at Aviation Mastery, so some of my alumni are going to be familiar with this. Head back over to your phones and hop on polev.com/MzeroA. Back in 1995, a research professor coined this term perceptual learning modules. And what he did is he took a group of pilots and showed them a standard 6-pack of instruments doing various things, right? Climbing left turns, descending right turns, all this sort of stuff. And he flashed them on the screen for as long as 6 seconds, as short as 3 seconds, and then took down the scores of how all these students did. Well, we're going to recreate that experiment here tonight, together here. So what I'm going to do is on the next few slides, I'm going to share with you a standard 6-pack. G1000 pilots, I'm sorry, you're going to have to read steam gauges again, so I apologize. I'm going to share that with you. Now there's 7 possible options, and those options will show on your phone. But let me explain. We can have a climbing right turn or a descending right turn. A climbing left turn or a descending left turn, a level right turn, a level left turn, all the basics. And the one tricky one is a conflict. A conflict. The attitude indicator is showing something that the turn coordinator is not showing. There's a conflict. Something doesn't match up. Maybe it's a pedostatic system failure. Maybe it's a vacuum failure. I don't care what failure it is. I just want you to know that something's not right here with what this is showing. Everybody follow me with this so far. So I'm going to show you instruments and then quiz you on them here. And we're going to end up kind of seeing how we do. So if everybody's ready here, eyes on the screen. Everybody got their eyes on the screen, not on your phones. This will show up on your phone in a second here. Eyes on the screen. Let's go ahead, and this one's going to be for 6 seconds. Ready? Scan those instruments, scan those instruments, scan those instruments. 6 seconds is up, just like that. What did you see? Head over to your phones now and let me know what you saw with that one. What did you see? You can see the results coming in down there. Super, super. Everybody confident in their answers? You ready? Okay, how many do I have? 70-something answers, 80-something answers. All right, let's reveal it here. What did we see? If we can reveal those, Russ. If not, I can maybe do it here. There we go, perfect. Thank you, Russ. 77%, a level right turn. 76%, awesome. Fantastic, exactly right. We saw that level right hand turn. Look at everybody change their answers now over here. You see this? Whoever had, look at that. 79% now. You guys are all prodigies. Look at that, look at that. 76% will call it. There are a few cheaters in the room out here, okay? I'll be watching for you all. All right, let's do another one here. Let's go ahead and let's show another one here. 5 seconds now, eyes on the screen. Everybody ready? Let's go through it. 5 seconds, scan those instruments, scan those instruments. Good, what'd you see? 5 seconds, it'll be on your phones now. What'd you see? There's the results coming in. What did you see? This, by the way, is something fun we're developing out for our online ground school. Great way to quiz yourself, a great way to get better at partial panel, at quick scan, and all these sort of things. What did we see? Russ, if we could, in the back, if we could reveal those answers, please. 93 results. Let's see. What did we get? I don't know where Russ is at. Network's really slow. Okay, that's fine. I don't know if I can show it or not here. Oops, that skipped one, sorry. I don't know if Russ is able to reveal that. I can't take it over from my side here, unfortunately. Maybe I could. There we go. Show results. There we go. Descending right hand turn. 80% you, spot on. I'm watching for you to change answers again. I'm watching. I know someone took their answer away. They felt bad last time, maybe. You guys are so honest. You're so honest. That's so nice of you all. I like how honest you guys are. 81% now. You Oshkosh people, you gotta watch you sometimes. 5 seconds again. Everybody ready? Eyes on the screen. 3, 2, 1. Eyes on the screen. 5 seconds. All right, what'd you see? Should be on your phones now. Ooh, those results are coming in quick. All right, to keep us moving here, I'm going to show those results here. Who's my climbing left turn? 86%. How is it we're taking time away and we're getting better and better? We started out at, 76%. We're now at an honest 86%. I'll give you guys that. We're continuing to get better and better here. All right? Let's speed it up. Let's see if this trend continues. Let's speed it up now to 4 seconds. We're getting really, really fast now. 4 seconds. Everybody ready? Eyes on the screen. Let's do it here. 4 seconds. You'd be amazed. Here goes 4 seconds, just like that. That's a tough one. On your phones real quick here. What did you see? No cheating. I hear people shouting out the answer here. Probably the same people that changed their answers. I'm teasing you. I'm going to go ahead and reveal that. We got plenty of responses in there, show those results. A descending left-hand turn. We regressed a little bit. What happened here? We're going to talk about that. This is all typical stuff here as we work to get faster and faster and better and better. For those of you that said conflict, let me show it to you again here, right? It's a descending left-hand turn. Let me show it to you again here. Okay? Look. Okay, I got my descent VSI down, left turn confirmed, and just like that, it's gone. That was descending left-hand turn here. I know if you look on the attitude indicator, which is barely below that horizon bar, remember, we can start a descent by bringing some power back too. The nose can stay kind of level, but I can bring the power back too. Don't let those eyes fool you with that here. All right, 4 seconds again. Eyes on the screen. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. 4 seconds. 4 seconds. All right, what did you see? Our last one was 74% correct. What did we see there? Let's show those results. There we go. Sorry, they're still coming in a little bit. My conflict winners. Absolutely. That was basically a vacuum system failure. The attitude indicator was frozen. Let me show it to you again. Let's show it again. We're going to teach through this, right? Look at the attitude indicator, then look at the turn coordinator. Start with the attitude indicator. Ready? Nothing. Left. DG's not spinning though. Vertical speed, kind of a descent in a way. Nothing was adding up. Nothing was making sense there, right? So my eyes, when I'm looking at that, what's my attitude indicator doing? Does my DG confirm that? Does my vertical speed or my turn coordinator, my airspeed confirm that? Check, check, one last cross check. You should be able to grab an answer by grabbing 3 instruments real quick in there. This is tough. This is why we practice. Let's make it even harder here. 3 seconds, eyes on the screen. Everybody ready? Eyes on the screen. Here we go. 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 3 seconds. That's quick, huh? What did you see? I'll let some more results come in here. What did you see? All right, I'm going to show those results here. There we go. Now, this is interesting. We're down to 3 seconds now. We started at 6 seconds, where we got a 76%. We're now half, down to 3 seconds. Now, we had a little stumbling block with that conflict, a little stumbling block with the other descending turn here, but here we have a climbing right-hand turn. And here's the difference. I took 2 seconds to teach you a quick method. Scan this, cross-check, right? And in half the time, we've increased our results here. So here we are practicing something, getting faster and faster and better each and every time, but we have to pause and allow for feedback. My point is, if you're not still regularly flying with a CFI, maybe once every 6 months or whatever it takes, I shouldn't see you every 24 calendar months for a flight review. I should see you a whole lot more than that, at least twice a year, because you need this feedback. It's going to make you better and better here. Okay, so we'll hold off on that here for a bit. I've got one more, but we'll hold off on that here just for time's sake here. Here's tip number 2. Once you get behind the airplane, it is inherently difficult to catch up. American 965 illustrates this so perfectly. When we fall behind the airplane, when we're ahead of our fix, when we lose situational awareness, when we head to the wrong fix, when we get behind the airplane, it is truly inherently difficult to catch up. You can just write down behind the airplane, hard to catch up. You see, preparation is the thing the average pilot does very little of, and the master pilot does consistently each and every flight. You must work to stay ahead of the airplane. So I want to share you one of the best ways IFR pilots, since the majority of the room were IFR pilots, I want to share with you a great tip that Gary Reeves actually gave me. So when we upgraded 2-3 Mike Zulu, Gary actually came to us to teach us the avionics and teach us IFR flying. And I'll never forget when, talk about always getting feedback like we just learned. We hire Gary. Gary comes in for 3 days. And he's going to teach us. And the first thing Gary says is, come on, let me show you guys how to pre-flight. And I hear the whole team's looking around like, what? I don't mean to be rude, Gary, but what are you going to show us on a pre-flight? I've owned this airplane for 10 years. I got a couple thousand hours in it. And he's just all excited. Let me show you about this pre-flight. I'm like, okay, Gary. So Gary's walking around this airplane, and he's like a little ninja, right? And emphasis on little, because he's a little guy. Don't let him fool you. He says he's as tall as me, but he's not, okay? He's walking around the airplane, and he's tapping on the airplane. He's going, tap, tap, tap. And he comes over here, and he goes, tap, tap, tap. I'm thinking, what? Gary's losing it. Like, what is happening right now? What is this man doing? And then finally he goes, stop, do you hear that? Tap, tap, tap. He goes, you have a busted rivet right here, right near one of the ribs, Jason. You need to get that looked at, like, right away. And literally, he's going around the airplane, tapping on the airplane, listening for busted rivets, and found one. Something I really never even have thought of, right? We got to be humble in aviation. There's always time to learn. That was just one of Gary's little bits of wisdom. The one I really want to share with you this evening is how we brief an approach plate. This is on the next page in your lesson plan as well. And I want to share with you really how we brief that approach plate. We started this by saying it's inherently difficult to catch up when we fall behind the airplane. Well, one thing Gary taught us is you must brief your approaches on the ground. I know that sounds so crazy, but he literally said, Jason, if you're waiting until you're flying to brief an approach, you're already behind the airplane. You must brief your instrument approach plates on the ground. This is how Gary showed me how to do it. We're using ForeFlight here, and whatever works for you, all apps will do this. We start with our annotations. Confirm that, yes, this is the runway GPS 18 approach into Tallahassee here. I get my approach course in there and my touchdown zone elevation, so I have it. My missed approach and any takeoff or alternate minimums that apply to me. I'm highlighting my ATIS, Tallahassee approach, tower, and thinking ahead of the airplane. Let's get ground control as well. These highlights are in your workbook as well. Next, I want to look in the actual view here. I want to highlight where I'm coming in from. I'll come in from Custy, it looks like, then head to Sigay, and then down to Jatma, and then down to, who knows how to say that? Zeg, I don't even know how to say that. Pronounce a bunch of X's in there as a little fix down along the way. Now, as I'm briefing this and imagining and seeing, having situational awareness to see how I'm coming in and how I'm actually going to approach this, I'm then going to start to work in some text annotations as well. I want to put my altitudes in there. This sounds redundant, this sounds crazy, but most of us fly zoomed in. So I need to be 3,000 at Sigay. So as you can see there on the left side of the screen, 3,000 and above. So I'm putting a 30 next to Sigay. At Jatma, I'm putting in my final approach fix. My next altitude here is at 2,000. I'm putting 2,000 in next to Jatma because we're all flying with our plates so zoomed in now, we're moving around on them anyways. I want everything in one central location here. Then the weird fix that nobody can name here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our altitude there as well of 920 feet. I'll spell that one all the way out since that's an odd altitude for us at Florida, in Florida where this is at. With this. Then, continuing on here, I want to add everything. I also want to add our missed approach. What does every missed approach start with in the world? Climb. Let's use some emojis here. An up arrow there for climb. And climb to what? We'll go ahead and put that in there as well as climb to 3,000 feet. So I'll put that climb up to 3,000 feet because a pilot who's thinking ahead is already thinking I'm going missed. You're already thinking about that missed approach here. You're not just briefing it and reading it. In our airplane, we can shoot an LPV approach. I'm going to highlight that, but I'm also going to round that up. Lord knows I can't fly all the way down just to 333 feet perfectly and make that decision and go around without going below it. I'm going to round this up to be safe. Let's call it 400 feet, just to be safe in that realm. So precision approach, that's what the P is for, up to 400 feet. Again, thinking ahead of the airplane. Now, if I'm flying to Tallahassee and I've looked at the winds and I know I'm using runway 18, I have this approach plate briefed before I even leave the ground. It sounds crazy. It sounds redundant, but again, it's thinking ahead of the airplane. This exact image is in your workbooks if you want to save it. And again, this is just Jason and Gary's way of doing things. I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, whatever. Find what works for you here. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is actually how I fly most of my approaches, kind of about this view, about this zoom level as well. That's why I transfer up so many of the altitudes, just so I have them there. But I can quickly scroll down to cross-reference and cross-check everything as well. We must be thinking ahead of the airplane. lately I've become very good friends with the Avemco insurance team, and they shared some very interesting facts with me. I was sharing with them about this idea of always staying ahead of the airplane. And I asked them, I said, hey, of your losses, how many what they call taxi losses do you actually have? And it surprised me. 11% of their losses are taxi losses. And then, so I had to ask the question, well, what's a taxi loss? She said, Jason, you'd be amazed at the pilots who are head down trying to program the iPad. ATC just gave them this weird fix that nobody can spell, and they're trying to type it in the FMS and get it all programmed. They don't have a lot of G1000 time. They're fiddling with that. Their heads are down in the cockpit, and they're clipping lights, and they're clipping signs, and once we all know when a prop hits something it's not supposed to, that's pretty much 100% chance of an overhaul right there, or at least a tear down. 11% of their losses occur on the ground. As silly and crazy as that sounds. We have to be working to stay ahead of the airplane, and it all starts on the ground. If you're flying and you're not asking yourself what's next, you're falling behind the airplane. So think of it that way. I need to always be asking, what frequency is next? Who should I be talking to? Am I going to get that radio call, 23 Mike Zulu, you're 5 miles on the final approach fix, turn right heading 330, you're cleared ILS runway 36 into Ocala, which is a mouthful. And to a new IFR pilot, you're like, 36 at Ocala. Like, you don't know what you say to that, but if you're thinking ahead, you know it's coming, right? You know what needs to be read back with that. If you're not asking yourself what's next, you're falling behind the airplane. Here's our third tip here. This is what I'm very, very passionate about. Are we really practicing emergencies, or are we just going through the motions? Are we really practicing emergencies, or are we just going through the motions? If you went to our 2-day aviation mastery event, you remember all 3 of these stories here, but I'll share them with everybody. Again, another law enforcement example here. There was a police department that was training officers on how to disarm an armed bad guy, we'll call them. And they were in the PD training room one day, and they were practicing, but they weren't practicing. They were kind of just going through the motions, and primacy falls into this as well. So they were practicing, with 2 officers there, and one would pull the weapon out, the other one would perform the maneuver, take it away, give it right back. Again, they'd practice. Pull the weapon out, again, disarm them, take it away, give it right back. And this would go on and on, back and forth. Every time they'd give it right back. They weren't practicing like you play. Do you see where I'm going with this? Well, one day they were out in the field, and sure enough, one of those officers had a weapon drawn on him. First thing he did, he went back to primacy. He went back to his training. He performed the maneuver perfectly, took the weapon away, and he gave it right back to the bad guy. You can imagine the look on the officer's face. You can imagine the look on the bad guy's face, right? Thankfully, since he was so stunned, he was able to perform the maneuver again, take it away, and keep it away this time. But I share this story with you because we must practice like we play. Now in law enforcement, we perform the maneuver, take the weapon away, and we keep it away, and another trained officer will go around and replenish the other side, right? But this applies to aviation all the same here. Let me give you a VFR and an IFR example. Let's start with the VFR example. How do we practice our engine failures in flight? So often we're up at 3,000 feet. I'll use Florida as the example because AGL and MSL are about the same thing to make it easy. We're at 3,000 feet. I reach over, I pull that throttle back to idle, and I say, I am so sorry, your engine just quit. Okay, no problem. You go through the ABCs of your emergency. A is for airspeed. I'm going to nail my glide speed. B is for my best landing area. Keeping in mind that tunnel vision we talked about. Best landing area might be behind me or below me. And if you have a sneaky flight instructor like myself, I always put the best landing area like right below you, so it's really hard to see. And then C is the checklist, if we have time. We do all this, so everything's looking great, and then all of a sudden, we have this pesky little regulation that says no flight below 500 feet AGL in non-congested areas here. So what do? We get to about 600 feet roughly, and what do? If you're carbureted, carb heat, full power, you go around. Going from 3,000 feet to 500 feet is the easy part. It's the last 500 feet that's the hard part. Who here has ever done a real soft field landing on grass? Okay, but good, maybe half, right? Have you ever thought that maybe your first real soft field landing might be in some farmer's field because of an emergency? I want you to practice a soft field landing before you're thinking, wow, I'm about to make the most important landing of my flying career, and I've just simulated this on pavement. Protect the nose, minimize braking, everything. Like, no, this is for real now. The last 500 feet is the hardest. It's where I'm too high, I need to slip, or I'm too low, I need to stretch this glide, I need to make a maneuver, I need to add flaps, I don't need flaps. There's cows in that field, there's a fence, it's a cranberry bog. It's what all these things get calculated into it. 3,000 to 500 feet is the easy part. It's the last 500 feet that's the hardest part. We're not practicing like we play. We're just kind of going through the motions. We just simulate it. You get to 500 feet and every CFI asks the same question. Well, Jason, would you have made that field? And what student has ever told me no? I've never had a student tell me, yes, Mr. Shappert, we would have made that field. And half the time we wouldn't have. Every student pilot says, yes, we would have made that field, of course. But we've never actually practiced that. So I encourage you to pull that power back to idle and practice into a public grass strip or a private grass strip with permission or wherever you can do that, or even just down to a paved runway is fine, because practicing those gliding techniques. You know what? Your emergency landing may not be with a headwind. It may be your first soft field landing. It may be your first tailwind landing as well. If you're not already practicing these sort of things, it's not an emergency if you practice for it. So are you really practicing emergencies or just going through the motions? Here's an IFR example really quickly. Think about the IFR environment. What do we do to our students? We put them under the foggles and we shoot an approach, we go missed. We shoot an approach, we go missed. What's the first skill we lose in instrument flying? It's our landings, because all we do, missed, missed, missed. You're like, you just finally figured out landings for your private check ride, then instrument, you like throw all that away because we're not landing anymore but once. This 2.5 Hobbs flight. So I had this student who was like a dream student for instrument flying. And we were getting close to his instrument pilot check ride, and one morning we wake up and there is just this perfect stratus layer. I'm thinking nice and stable. It's above, it's just inside the final approach fix a little bit where we're going to break out. It is going to be perfect here. So we take off, and who knows what I'm saying when I say there's a big difference between hood time and actually sticking your head in the clouds. Right? There's a big difference between that, right? So he was awesome when we were under the hood. And all of a sudden we hit the clouds for real. And we are over this way, and we are over this way, and we are all over the place. And think, what is wrong? This is like my rock star student. What's wrong? So then I had what I thought at the time was a genius idea. I'm going to put the foggles back on him. So I put the foggles back on him. And all of a sudden that he couldn't see the scary stuff outside, life was good. He's on the localizer. He's nailing the glide slope. Everything is perfect. But what I didn't realize is we weren't practicing like we play, because when he's by himself, he can't just hide from the world and put his foggles on, right? I'm sure there's a regulation or two against that. So I wasn't practicing like we play. Instead, when we put the foggles on, he went back into training mode. And here we are. We're final approach fix inbound, and he's looking good. He is right on that glide slope, right on that localizer. We're coming down, and I'm saying, listen, you just keep your eyes inside. I'll be your eyes outside. I'll let you know when I see something. And I'm looking out here going, I'd really like to see some trees right now. And we're coming on down. And all of a sudden, and I can be a little loud and a little verbose sometime, we break out, we see the lights, and I go, I see the lights. And what does he do? Carb heat, full power, goes missed. And I stopped for a second. I said, what are you doing? And literally he's going, I don't know. It's trained into you, right? It's because it's what we practice every single time. Instrument pilots, it's okay to land the airplane occasionally, right? We're so used to going miss so often, but you don't realize. So many of us are guilty of, before the final approach fix, we just put 10 degrees of flaps in. We kind of hold 90 down that glide slope the entire way. Then you break out at 200 feet, 300 feet AGL, and you only got 10 degrees of flaps. The runway's in front of you. You're a little bit off to the left, so you're trying to fix it here, and you're doing just shy of a no flap landing now at this point. Have you practiced for that as well? We must practice like we play here. Here's our last and final tip, and then I'm going to wrap this up here for us this evening. We must continue to pursue knowledge. Ending every video with a good pilot is always learning isn't just some catchy marketing slogan or anything like that. It is truly a statement to live by. We must continue to pursue knowledge. You see, knowledge will not save you from an accident unless you truly know how to apply it. Knowledge is not power, knowledge is potential power. But that knowledge has to be applied in the right order. In the IT field, we call it syntax, right? I can have all the right results, all the right things, but put them in the wrong order. If I look at the ABCs of an emergency and I jump straight to the B, best landing area, got it, but I don't do the A, my best glide speed or airspeed, I may not make that best field out there if I don't manage my glide speed effectively here. Knowledge isn't power, knowledge is potential power. You must have it in the right order to get the right start, the right result here. You know, it's not the lawyer who knows the most law, but the one who best prepares their case who wins the case every single time here. We must continue to pursue knowledge in everything we do. So listen, I know we have covered a lot here in our short time together. I am so just blessed and thankful for you all for being here. You know, we have a very different strategy, business philosophy here at MzeroA.com. We believe that in order to get, you must give first. So, you know, in order to get happiness, help others be happy. In order to get success, help others become successful here. So I want to leave each of you, and we're all in different walks of this aviation journey, but I want to leave each of you with just a little bit of wisdom here. To my private pilots, every situation is new. We must let what we know guide us, but not blind us to what we do not know. We must remain flexible and adaptable to any situation. We must always retain a beginner's mind and never overvalue our experience or undervalue the information that served at us moment by moment as we fly. To my instrument pilots, remember, preparation is the one thing that the average instrument pilot does very little of, and the master pilot does consistently, each and every time. To my commercial pilots, flying is all about testing yourself, growing, and preparing all your options. So when you're flying, there is nothing that hasn't been thought of or practiced. Do the work before you need it, so you know what you're capable of when everybody else is hitting the panic button. To my flight instructors, don't teach others the way you want to be taught. Teach them the way they need to be taught. Always be reminding yourself that a student is only going to learn to your level, so continue to raise yours. And to everyone out there, I wish you a tremendous success in wherever this aviation journey may take you. So I encourage you to live by the words, most importantly, and remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much.
I sincerely hope you loved watching this video. These videos you see online are simply just the tip of the iceberg of what we do here at MzeroA.com. MzeroA is a complete private, instrument, commercial, and FOI online ground school. Everything is done at your own pace online. You watch our lessons, also online, take practice exams, all from any device. If you love these free videos we put out here on YouTube and Facebook, I encourage you to check out our complete online ground school for the knowledge test, check ride, and most importantly, setting you up to make you that safe, real-world pilot. Take a 2-week free trial, no strings attached, of our online ground school by visiting MzeroA.com/trial.